How do we always have to come to this moment when we're yelling at the Raptors and say, look at us, see us as just human beings. Don't just look at us as numbers or just look at us as maybe some good content. Look at us as black people. This black girl is missing. As a black father, I am pissed off because this could be my child.
Carmichael family is desperately searching for their 16-year-old daughter who disappeared almost a month ago.
With black girls, it just doesn't seem like there's a sense of urgency.
The sheriff's office says she's on the list of missing people, but isn't considered at risk.
In this particular time, the reason why we opened up this dialogue with this press conference and a community search party, that now she's been missing for over a month. The last time her family, her mother who was here, will be speaking to you guys and answering questions as well. The last time she was seen at her home was December 27th. The person that she had contact with on the 28th when she left her home around 12 o'clock was her boyfriend. So as she left her home to meet her boyfriend, there was a series of text messages between the two. In these text messages, it was seen that Nykari was going to leave. In all honesty, we believe that she probably was going to meet up with her boyfriend and come back. When there was her leaving, out through her back door, the sliding glass door, her stepfather heard a noise and thought someone was breaking in. And with that being said, they called law enforcement. With law enforcement coming in, they found that she was no longer there. She had left her cell phone. She didn't take any clothes with her. So in the series of conversations that her cousin was now texting the boyfriend that she was allegedly supposed to be with that night, we come to find out that the boyfriend is going back and forth with the cousin. At first saying that she's not with him, then secondly saying that she is, and we don't know at this particular time if Nykari was actually there with them, but it is said that Nykari was now receiving the message and texting the cousin back. In this text messages, there was a lot of questions being asked about where's law enforcement, do people know that I'm missing, do people know that I'm gone, blah, blah. All this information we'll share with you guys via email and send you kind of the text thread, the timeline of that. In that, eventually around 12:30, close to 1 o'clock, there were no longer text messages. After that, as law enforcement came, received the confirmation that Nykari was no longer at the household, mother confronted the boy, the 16-year-old boyfriend, to see and ask where her daughter was at. And in that moment, the boyfriend said that she's not with me. I never actually met her. So in that, where it becomes tricky, if we're following the timeline of why we're here, is in a text message when the cousin was texting the boyfriend, you have the boyfriend one responding, and then the boyfriend seemingly saying, okay, this is Nykari. So in the sense of Nykari was actually with the boyfriend. So we think, we're not too sure. But when the mother confronted the boyfriend about where the daughter was, the boyfriend claimed that he never met up with her. So that's kind of where we're at on that piece. The alarming thing for us as a community, that it's been 30 days that a 16-year-old girl has not made it home, has not communicated with her family. From what we know, that the family, they have a steady relationship. Just the same night that she went missing, that she was with family in a family gathering. It's not like her to not communicate with her family. So if this was a thing for her to maybe want to blow off steam and leave, that eventually within at least a week or so, she would communicate with someone. She'd be on some type of social media platform, but all of that has been zero to nothing. I don't know about you, but in this day and age, I don't know any 16-year-old teenager that's not going to take their cell phone. So that again sparks off a little bit of concern, as well as the moment when she was leaving, the boyfriend asking for her to grab a knife. My idea is that as she was leaving that late at night, that it was to protect her just in case. But we're now going on a whole month where there's been no interaction, there's been no movement on social media, and unfortunately there hasn't really been a heightened movement with law enforcement. So we're also here to press that law enforcement do a lot more to kind of investigate. And look at some of the information that the mother has shared with all of you that will have it now, the text messages. It's alarming for us that this under law is not considered to be a teenager at high risk because they said, well, she did leave willingly. Unfortunately, here in America, you have hundreds of thousands of black girls missing a year. And unfortunately, if you don't live in a certain area code, or if you are not a certain color, if you're not a white teenage girl living in Truckee or Rockland by the name of Allison Stewart or Sarah McDaniels, you're not going to get that kind of press, or you're not going to get that kind of sense of urgency. So that's why we're here as well. That we don't have the sense of urgency for black girls when they go missing. There's not a sense of direction. There's not a sense of media hype. There's not this frenzy when we just saw last year the Truckee girl, 16-year-old, who was actually at a party and was drinking, allegedly, and went missing, and the whole world flipped upside down looking for her. We have had not one person, except for one of the news outlets, two news outlets, SACB and ABC News, that decided to finally take on the case or look at the story just a little bit after 20-some days. That to me is very unfortunate. I believe, and I know that if there was more pressure put on this case, that we would have found her by now. Somebody knows what's happened to her. We are praying and hoping that she's okay. But in the line of work that I'm in, knowing that a 16-year-old girl is gone for this long, could be a few things. It could be she's with an irresponsible adult that's keeping her in a household and allowing her to stay and not communicate with her family or any member of law enforcement, or she could be trafficked. And I say that because too many of these young black girls that go missing or run away or just leave their house, sometimes you end up finding them on Stockton Boulevard. Stockton Boulevard is one of the major hubs here in Sacramento, if you don't know that. So there's many thoughts that go through our head, as well as the time that she left her home. We had a major catastrophe in California. It was one of the major storms. And with that by itself, a young girl, no phone, no clothes, no money, and in the middle of a storm with no communication to the family, I don't care how bad your home life is, eventually with that storm and all the things that were going on, I'm going to reach out. So there's a lot of different things that we leave in question. A lot of it for me as an advocate, doing these stories, being a member of the community, having my own children, daughters, but as well as knowing the relationship that I have with some media, that there's a certain different response that I get with certain stories, and when it's black girls missing, it's a different kind of response. So I think that we all need to be held accountable for how we react in moments like this. There should be no way, and I say there should be no way, that a month goes by and a young girl, 16 years old, is missing and no one knows anything. I will say that again. There's no way that a young girl, 16-year-old black girl, after a month should be missing without no one knowing anything. There should be a heightened sense of urgency. I understand, as I spoke to one of the officers just a few minutes ago, that they explained me to the laws, and the laws are saying that if they're voluntary, that a 16-year-old wouldn't be considered high risk. So what is high risk? What has to happen for it to be high risk? Do we have to find her under a highway, dead? Do we have to find her beat? Do we have to find her raped? Do we have to find her trafficked? What is going to be considered high risk? When are we going to have the sense of urgency to figure out where the 16-year-old girl is? Get her the help that she needs. If there's issues with her families, then let's be able to solve this problem with being liaisons for her family and her. But when are we going to have the sense of urgency for our black girls?
black girls who are constantly being missing. And luckily, with the hope and the belief that she hasn't gone too far, I still believe that she's somewhere here in the Northern California area. But there's a lot of questions that need to be asked. There's a lot of concerns that we have. We're not by any way, shape, form, or fashion saying her boyfriend is a suspect, but to be transparent, we are telling you the last person she had any contact with was her boyfriend. And that's kind of how we have to pull it out straight, because there's been a lot of, I think, mistakes as well as miscommunication and evidence of what and who and where she's at, that some people believe that she's safe or she's talking to her family or her family knows where she's at. The family has not heard from her since December 27th. She went missing on December 28th. So those are those facts. Those are the actuals. Those are the things that are happening. What we do know that there hasn't been a heightened concern except probably for maybe the last few days, if not probably a week. But this should be a story that, just like the situation in Truckee where the young girl was missing, 16-year-old white girl that was missing, that every press, every news, local and nationally, was talking about it. If she is somewhere on someone's couch eating potato chips and chilling, well then we need to go find out where that is and bring her home. That has to happen. So for me, I think that we even have to go deeper into the laws and what we consider at risk, because the frustration that I have, and I know the family has, the family that's sitting over here that haven't been with their loved one, their beautiful baby, the people that she left behind, is exhausting. It's frustrating, and also creates anger. But at the same particular time, it makes me wonder: do we care about our black girls? Do we care about young black girls missing? Do we have the decency and understanding that this girl is probably lost and don't know what she's doing at this particular time? So, Nykari, if you're there, you hear us, we're making a plea: come back home. You're not in trouble. And whatever situation that's going on at home or outside of the home, you have a support system that will help you outside of just your immediate family. You do have a support system. But I also hope that this is a day that we recognize that there are so many young people outside of Nykari that are dealing with whatever stress, battling whatever situations in this society that expect so much of them, that we should, when they are reaching out for help, come together and support them in a better way. And do better, as well as media, law enforcement, and community stepping up to say, let's put an end to this. Because this really should have just lasted a week. In my honest actuality of this thing, if I'm processing it in the way I'm processing it. Because I think there's just too much evidence that points in a direction to where, if you follow the steps, if you knock on some neighbors' doors, if you look at some rings, because she jumped out of her little backyard, and I don't think that it's that hard to find a young 16-year-old girl without resources. But I do understand that a young 16-year-old girl, for weeks or a month, not having food, money, or resources, she's going to go to the first person that's going to give her that. And that's when it becomes trouble. As you can see, this mother is very distraught, very frustrated, sad, worried. Her anxiety is up, because no parent should have to be up here pleading for a child to come back home. To some, this is a news story. For her, this is her real life. Her oldest daughter, 16-year-old, is been gone from her for a whole month. So, however we want to be technical about what is a runaway, what is a missing person, what I do know is no one has heard from her for a whole month. To me, that's suspicious, and the level of uncertainty that this family has is troubling. Because where's Nykari Johnson? Like, how does a 16-year-old girl black girl at that. Beautiful, as you can see her pictures with braids, no money, no cell phone. How's she moving around? So there has to be someone that knows something. There has to be an adult, some kid that knows something. So the family's plea, the mother's plea, a community's plea is to bring her home. And bring her home now with a sense of urgency and concern. So, now at this time, I did talk to one of the lieutenants. They said that she is in a missing persons database. That after this, we'll be meeting with one of law enforcement that is supposed to be on the case. So we're hoping there's a heightened sense of urgency that they can understand what the mother has been saying. And I don't think they have all the information that they need to make it necessary for them to kind of do the job that they need to do at this particular time.
Also, there was a message that I did receive, which I sent to the Sacramento Sheriff's evidence. They sent me that requested money for Nykari. They said that they would kill her if I didn't. Whatever they said. And I called the police and they came to my house and I showed them the messages. And once I called them back, because I never heard anything, they said, oh, that was a joke. Someone was just messing around. And I shouldn't put my number on the internet. I feel like that right there should have had at least something. I don't care if it was a joke or not. I feel like they should have looked into it and thought that maybe it could have been somebody. Even if it was a joke, someone was made around. Why isn't they trying more now? That was a week after she came up missing. And now it's been months.
So in a sense of, we're definitely not trying to play this race card, because this is a young 16-year-old girl. But there is a difference between how a teenage white girl who goes missing, the sense of urgency is there compared to a teenage black girl. And these are things that are factual. This is not something that we're trying to put in the air to be negative. It's just, we have seen the response time, watched it over and over and over again. If families don't reach out for a person like myself who can advocate the way I advocate, me and my team, then they're probably going to be dealing with this situation by themselves. And most of the times it's been like that. So we're not trying to throw out a race thing, but here we are a month later. And we now have all media paying attention, but how much run is it going to get afterwards? Because people want to create a narrative or paint a story. Well, she left. Okay. Well, the girl from Truckee was at a party and she left. And she was gone. No one knew where she was at. And we didn't hear the levels of what is at risk. It's we heard we have a missing teenager. That's what we heard. It didn't matter when, where, who she was with. It was we had a missing teenager. And right now in our community, we have a missing 16-year-old teenager that has not been heard from. And there's messages that I think need to be taken a lot more seriously. I honestly think, and it's unfortunate, before it gets better, it got to get worse. And that's the truth.
something tragic has to happen before folks really react in the way that we would hope they would react. And we can't wait for anybody to do the job for us. That's why we do what we do. Another thing, I don't place any blame on anyone. I just think that there needs to be a sense of urgency. Because I have a great rapport with people, you know, and some of my media colleagues were frustrated themselves that because of the wording of what is considered missing and because of the storm that took center stage in a lot of the reporting, that this wasn't looked upon as top priority. Where then we look at it being strategic, like how do we make it top priority? And thank you for our community members that continue to share, ask questions, share. But then here comes the work. Now the work is we got to literally go out here in these streets and start looking for this person, looking for this girl, right? So I just honestly believe that there has to be a moment that happened in Truckee where they find the girl and the girl wasn't living. That we find the girl and she's on Stockton Boulevard being tricked out, pimped out. That then we'll see, oh, wow, we may have to get more concerned and more take for young black girls when they go missing. That's the only unfortunate part of our society. We're very reactionary. We're not preventative. We don't care about preventing it. We don't care about being 2 days, because if my daughter was missing for an hour and I saw her cell phone with a family member, I'm tripping. I don't care about what kind of argument we got into. I'm like, wait a minute. She done left on her. No, I am going to be highly irate, and I'm going to roam these streets. That's why we have our program, She Could Be My Daughter. And that's why I say that, because she could be my daughter. But I'm going to say this to Johnny Public as well as those who are listening. She could be your daughter. And how would you feel if it was your child? Over a month. Regardless of whatever transaction that might have had or happened in the household, there was a lack of communication. There was no communication. And the only thing you had was simply a conversation that she had with a so-called boyfriend, and that was it. And the boyfriend is saying, I don't know where she's at. We never met up. But you said, so that becomes a confusion. But again, this is not to throw him under the bus, but it's being transparent on what is actually happening right now in real time. So it's 30 days. If people think that that's okay in our society, we're living in a very sick society. But I also know when it comes to black girls, we have absolutely no sense of urgency to pick up and figure it out and find it. Because there's too many black girls that have come up missing and never made it back home. These are facts. And if you want to ask and see if I'm lying, go down to Stockton Boulevard at any given day, any given time, and you'll see some of those missing babies right there being trafficked. Now, we're not saying that's what's happening, but we have to look at all situations on real time. We are living in a major hub of sex trafficking here in Sacramento. These are facts. So we can't sit there and just start pretending that there might not be a situation, regardless if this girl knows the life or not. All it does is take one person to interact. She might have been interacting with them before, or to interact with a child that has no clothes, has no money, feels it's not safe for whatever reason to go back home. I don't want to communicate with my mama. I don't want to communicate with my aunties. I don't want to communicate with none of my cousins or my friends. And get coerced into doing something that's out of her character. Why do we pretend like this doesn't happen? Are we sure about that? So I'm saying that we need to look at every single situation, whether it's probably, as I don't know, the officer said, they're just joking or not. Because I've gotten text messages and I've gotten people calling me, and it's got me to a high level of concern. But what I do know is I don't think that in society we can keep moving with people being gone from missing for 30 days and have no interest in that.
and say that it's not a news story? How is pain not a news story? How is heartbreak not a news story? How do we always have to come to this moment when we're yelling at the rafters and say, look at us, see us as just human beings. Don't just look at us as numbers or just look at us as maybe some good content. Look at us as black people. This black girl is missing. As a black father, I am pissed off. Because this could be my child. And I've worked with too many young girls missing, and I've watched it go the other way. So we just have to wrap around our arms around this family and just help support them. I don't think it takes that long to put a little blur and say, missing Sacramento girl on all news networks. I don't think it takes that. You guys give us about 30 seconds anyway. But at this point in time, we need people to dive in a little bit deeper. A lot deeper. So whoever is holding her, they can feel so much pressure and say, girl, you hot. I'm going to get you back to your people.
Right.
You got the block hot. You got to go. Whether she wants to go or not. You got to go. And if there's anything that's happening in that household, let us know, and then we can help work it out. But this is, for me, this is a carelessness of our whole community and society that we allow these things to continue to fluster, and then it gets to a point of frustration and anger, and that folks don't know how to participate or communicate with the people that they need to communicate to help bring this girl back home. So at this moment, it's a plea to everyone to make this a full-on scale push to get Nykari Johnson's information and name out there, her face out there. Thank you for Arden Mall for going ahead and putting out a bunch of posters and telling their team that if she goes to the mall, this is the girl that we need to look at. Thank you for Sac State to call me. That's going to go ahead and put her visual on at their basketball game. Thank you, community, that's continue to share. Thank you, media folks that have continued to give information and supported, that I have supported. But now, we are now in crunch time. We can't go 2 months. We just can't. I don't think it will be good for the family. I just don't think it'll be good for a community. And the longer we go, the easier for whatever is happening with her right now, she gets trapped and locked in. And it's like no turning back at that time. Any other questions?
Have we contacted any other agencies, Citrus Heights, Rockland, Sac PD?
They all said that only Sac sheriffs work for Carmichael, since our address is in Carmichael, so there's nothing they could do. They always send us back over to the sheriff's office.
I disagree with their answer to that. One more, if you don't. I heard earlier you guys said somebody with the deleted Instagram page said that she wasn't coming home, allegedly. Who was that?
That was the boyfriend.
The boyfriend. Allegedly.
I don't have that picture or anything to show, but he said it to me in front of the police. And he deleted his Instagram after he posted that.
And again, this is not us throwing this young man under the bus, but if we have to be transparent, and we are, and for those who are in the media, you know how I roll. I roll with accountability, transparent. I don't hold no punches. And as well as, if it's wrong, it's wrong. If she was hiding her daughter, we would not be at this press conference. If she knew where her daughter was at, I would not have called anybody and said, come on here, where it's windy at 11 o'clock community media, let's go. We don't do this for show. Some other folks do, we don't. We don't have press conference just to have press conference, just to say, no, we don't do that. A lot of my people, you guys already know how I am, because my credibility means the world to me, as well as working with all you guys. You know, I know I've been giving you guys a hard time, but you guys understand. But the reality is, for us, is something doesn't seem right about this moment. And we're just asking just to put a little bit more time to execute it. The professionals that know how to do this stuff could have probably solved this quicker than we could. You now are creating a moment for us to kind of just have our thoughts go everywhere. And they are.
because we've seen this happen too often. So hopefully, after today, you know, we do have a Facebook page. What is it? Nykari Johnson Facebook page. Okay, where's Nykari Johnson? Where's Nykari or where's Nykari Johnson? Okay, we have a Facebook page, where's Nykari Johnson, that we will share with you guys, just to kind of, you know, we don't want to bombard the family with, she could be here, she could be there. We just want to make sure that if you have any leads, to be able to gracefully give it to us so we can communicate that back to law enforcement or others. And we also today are going to be giving out flyers so we can post them and go around the community and just be very diligent about surrounding this community with her face. We're this plea for this mother, for this family, this plea for a community, so we can at least see that we can exhaust all situations to show black girls that they are supported, that people do care. We have to do this because I promise you, and I know this to be facts, there's going to be another girl, black girl, that goes missing. There's going to be another girl that goes missing. And we can't just allow this to continue to fester in our society without doing something about it. Anybody else have any other questions?
Put a lot of emphasis on her being a black girl and asking, you know, for a sense of urgency. Do you feel, you know, our local community, public agencies, and even our local media might have, you know, once again let our black community down with this one? And if so, what can we do to do better in the future?
100%. I mean, because I mind you, I have given a lot of my media affiliates, you know, missing girls that wasn't in this sense of urgency before, and it was easier as interview, put up the picture, thank you Barry, we got you. For some reason it's like, okay, now we're gonna go follow by the rules. Like everybody got rules now. The rules of missing girls is this, but when Truckee happened, it was rules are out the window, find that girl, white girl that was. So my thing is like, we always have rules, we always have this status quo that we always follow, but for some reason, as soon as I was breaking a story about something else, everybody wanted to jump on the story. We're gonna talk about that. People know what I'm talking about. And I just think that when it's sensationalized, there's a sense of urgency. When it's local, it's a black girl missing. The problem that, let me back away. The problem that we have as black people, we act too resilient. We act too tough. We act too strong. We act like we don't need help. So when people see that, they formulate this idea, she's a 6-year-old black girl, she's resilient enough, she'll be okay, but that's not far from the truth. If anything, she probably needs more help than any other young girl running around here. Because of all the stuff that black children have to go through. Household, community, school, society. So there should be a heightened sense of urgency on what could be happening right now. Especially when you know it takes just a few minutes for someone slick to get in your ears, and next thing you know, you giving them all your money. Or next thing you know, you just out there lost. So for me, I'm concerned of how we value black girls in our society, but locally, because I've seen us do better, but this particular point in time, I don't know if it's miscommunication between law enforcement, the family, but we should have acted upon this a lot more urgent than we have. It shouldn't take us standing by the sheriff's office with signs and pictures talking about a missing girl, Nykari Johnson, a whole month. To me, that's just absolutely insane. I mean, matter of fact, good old Roseville Galleria. Do you know how many girls get picked up over there? I mean, we're not in a space or place where these things aren't happening. It's happening in real time, but we don't talk about it enough because people are afraid to go into that kind of content. Because people don't want to look at the missions that we would have to be a part of, because these creepy old men and younger men, these predators are in our community. And as we saw with the arrest of a teacher, some of these predators are teaching our children. So this opens up a bigger can of worms in reality.
But again, my anger, it has nothing to do with how, but it has to do why. Why does it take this? Why does it make, why do we always have to feel so lost and not empowered? Why do we have to create these kind of moments for people to pay attention? Why couldn't I just call, give some information, have my people say, hey, all right, let's do this, and boom. We shouldn't have to do this all the time. When everything, we shouldn't have this sense of, okay, well, let's make it a news story, do a press conference. No, it should be, the girl's been gone for this days, let's take this stuff seriously. Simple as that. Listen, again, for for the sake of, because everybody knows, again, we're not making this a race thing. I believe all girls, white girls, Latino girls, Asian, all girls, all children, there should be a heightened concern when they're missing. So I want to make that very clear, that we're not creating this idea it's a race thing. We're just pointing out the difficulty and the unfortunateness of how there's some reason, a sense of urgency when it's other girls compared to black girls. There should be a heightened sense of urgency. I understand, as I spoke to one of the officers just a few minutes ago, that they explained me to the laws, and the laws are saying that if they're voluntary, that a 16-year-old wouldn't be considered high risk. So what is high risk? What has to happen for it to be high risk? Do we have to find her under a highway, dead? Do we have to find her beaten? Do we have to find her raped? Do we have to find her trafficked? What is going to be considered high risk? When are we going to have the sense of urgency to figure out where the 16-year-old girl is? Get her the help that she needs.